Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about Stoicism in business, ladies and gentlemen. That is a thinker. So, we will be thinking about that today with my special guest, Trudi. Yay! So, Trudi, let's go ahead and just dive right in. When you hear, we're going to break this up though, you know what I mean? Really break this up so we can really have an understanding and really think about this well. So, when you think of Stoicism, what does that necessarily make you think about?
Well, I think that for most people, including myself, there's a confusion actually between definitions. Whether Stoicism is capitalized or not makes a huge difference. Now, my only exposure to the word before fairly recently was the lowercase version, which meant that someone was rigid and stiff and suppressed their feelings and emotions. I think of when we think of British with the stiff upper lip, that kind of stoicism, that kind of stiffness that's portrayed. But recently I was introduced to Stoicism with a capital S, which is a philosophy. And yes, it is a philosophy where there is some stiffness and rigidity involved, but it's not a suppression of your feelings. It's actually an acknowledgement of your feelings. It's a 2,500 plus year old philosophy
Okay.
wherein the focus is on what we can control over what we cannot control.
Hmm.
And many philosophers of today would even say that that is the key to happiness. That's it. You've got one purpose in life, and that's to learn to disseminate what you can and what you cannot control. And if you can just learn to do that, things will fall into place. And it does seem to be very true
Yeah.
from not just my experience, but from I've done a lot of reading on it since then, and it's fascinating. But there's a phrase in the Serenity Prayer, which a lot of us are familiar with through AA. God grant me, what is it? It's on my wall here. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So it's really the wisdom part that we really need to focus on, because otherwise it's just putting every decision you're going to make, even small decisions, into two boxes: can
Yeah.
control and can't control. So if we break it down to its very most simplistic philosophy, it's
Yeah.
really very easy to apply, not just to your life, but to your business.
Yes, and I love that. And I love the way that you really broke it down so that people could really think about it and understand, like, where is your perception? Where are you perceiving this word? And are you perceiving it in the lowercase or are you perceiving it in the uppercase? Because it does make a difference in how you go about it. And because you may reject it because you're perceiving it in the wrong format. You know what I mean? So giving people and all of my listeners this understanding really does make you really think about it. You know what I mean? Where am I thinking about this? How am I receiving this? Because in all actuality, taking each day as we can and putting it in those two categories of what I can control and what I can't control truly does bring our power back to us. You know what I mean? Because we
100%.
realize we can't do everything. And one thing that I always pray for is, Lord, help me accept what I do not understand and help me understand what I do not accept. You know what I mean? Because every day in
Same
life,
thing.
it's the same concept that we need to really focus on what really matters in our day and what we can and cannot do, and be realistic. We have to be realistic with our lives. And I
Well,
love how
we waste energy, we waste time.
we
We're
really
banging
do.
our heads on the wall trying to control things that can't be controlled no matter how hard we try.
Exactly. What's done is already done. It's already in the past. Let it go. It's done. And what's in the future, it will come when it comes. You know what I mean? And people are either so stuck in the future. Oh, I need to do this for tomorrow, for this, for in the few weeks, in a few months, in a few. But then what's already done, they're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe this and this. I can't. Oh, that's so embarrassing. And it's like, we need to realize, like, sometimes the embarrassing moment, the offense in the moment, the fear in the moment, in reality later on in the future can be our wisdom. You know what I mean? Could be a
Right. Well, I
lesson.
call those unforced errors, right? Those foot in the
Exactly.
mouth. Yeah. And unforced errors aren't just for baseball, right? They're for everyday life. We do it
Yeah,
to ourselves. We can be our own worst enemies. And
we
these
really can.
self-inflicted wounds can really put our business under. And
Exactly.
a lot of the perception, if you engage with Stoicism, you realize that it's your reaction then to what happens. Yes.
Yes.
And so this lays the foundation for a solid business. Now, it doesn't really matter what that business is. My bailiwick happens to be bookkeeping, but it can be applied to any and every business, and not just to business. It can be applied to every aspect of your life. It really is that broad. You know, I've often said it's kind of unfortunate that AA commandeered the Serenity Prayer because it applies to every aspect of your life, whether you're struggling with an addiction or whether you're struggling to figure out, you know, um, a family holiday
Yeah.
schedule. You know, there
Yeah.
just it doesn't really matter what the situation is, but you've got to disseminate what you cannot control. You've got to stop wasting time fretting over and getting flustered over and getting frustrated.
Exactly. And with businesses, this is the perfect concept to implement because now we're trying to move in a manner with employers to really think about the employees. You know what I mean? And if the employer can really have this concept like stoicism in their business, in their mantra, in their way to go, then they can really stop putting the pressure on their employees and be like, oh, well, we don't have the numbers. The numbers aren't right. You know what I mean? Sales teams, oh my goodness, I feel bad for anybody in sales because it's always about numbers, numbers, numbers. Every quota, it's like, oh, but we didn't meet this quota. We didn't meet this one. So now we need to do it for the next one. But it's like, if we put that into our businesses, especially in sales, then you can have a more relaxed and calming concept. Because if you realize that they can only do as much as they are given and as much as they're exposed to in their day of that moment, and they're trying their best, then at least acknowledge that. You know what I mean? At least provide them the understanding that I see you, I hear you, I value you, and because that's all that any employee wants. They want to feel valued, they want to feel heard, they want to know that they are not just a number in their bookkeeping book. You know what I mean? They
Well,
are more
right.
than that.
Right. Well, it brings calm to chaos because
Yes, that's the word.
it allows you to step way back and look at things in their totality. And I think when you keep things in their most simple, I'm a keep it simple kind of a person because I think that I can complicate things as much as people would like me to. And I always tell them
Mhm.
that we can complicate the hell out of this if you'd like. However, keeping it simple and keeping things to their most uh, common denominators, break them down into the
Yeah,
least pieces possible, like three, you know, break it down into three simple pieces or three simple aspects. And then we just run it through the decision process, but it can drastically change the way that you not only approach tasks, but the way you approach people, the way you approach your family members, because you can't control other people,
no,
although you can guide behavior. You know, the same applies with children, right? You're trying to
yeah,
guide their behavior, not
yeah,
control them as people, right?
yeah.
So, but it just there's no instance where it doesn't seem to apply. It is that all encompassing. So it
Yes,
solves a lot of problems along the way. Most of my clientele are trying to start their own businesses. So they're trying to come out of those shadows with a boss and try to be their own boss. And here they've oftentimes not been in a situation where they've had to make their own decisions. Like here I sit, day one of my new practice. I've worked for X amount of years and someone else has always told me what I should be doing. Here's what you're going to do this week or today, or here's your assignment. I need it by Friday. Whatever that is, it comes from someone else, right? So now
yeah.
you're on your own and you have to be able to control your discipline, how you show up, your focus, right?
Yep.
All of these things that you do control, you know, you control this, right? And that's
Yeah.
why I often say, even about when we talk about how you show up, you do have control. And so when I see bookkeepers that show up to networking functions that you know there's a perception that people have of what their bookkeeper should be. There's a reason they have that. Most professions in the financial world. You
Yeah.
expect maybe a at least business casual. When you show up at an event and you haven't combed your hair and you look like you just rolled out of bed, you're not fresh, you don't even appear bright-eyed and ready to participate. That speaks
Exactly.
volumes to the kind of business that you're going to be able to transact, to the kind of people that you will attract, because you are a package and you do have control over your package. We talk a lot
Exactly.
in business about branding. Well, when you're establishing your branding, that's what you're doing. You're saying to people, here's what I want to be recognized for, right? So you're controlling that. So why put
Exactly.
all of this fluff out for your brand only to then show up in complete contradiction to that brand, looking disheveled or ill prepared? So,
Exactly. Exactly.
and that's
It
stuff you
doesn't
have
make
control over.
sense. Exactly, because it's like you're not going to believe an officer that smells like alcohol and then tells you, "Hey, don't drink and drive, but I smell you and you smell like straight alcohol yourself." You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
those two don't add up. Like so you really have to add this up and make sure that it works because it's like you said, we only have ourselves. We are only responsible for ourselves. And if you're putting yourself in your business, in a bakery, in finance, in sales, in whatever that you want to do, you need to realize like your image is you. You are
Right.
marketing yourself,
And
everything, and then
everybody's
you have to be
watching.
memorable. So it's like
Yeah.
you have to really make it make sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think I would love to know, and I'm pretty sure my audience would love to know too, is like how exactly did you fall into this yourself? Like, how did you realize like
Oh,
Stoicism was
I thank you
something
so much
that
for
you could
asking.
adopted?
I appreciate you asking. It's deeply sentimental to me. And of course, I promote that there's no room for emotion in business. So I don't like getting emotional about it. But I had kind of two things going on at the same time, as we often do as entrepreneurs. And I run multiple
Yes.
businesses. So there's always a lot going on. But I'm into I like to follow mediums. I like to think that people that have passed on have my back and that they want to see me succeed. So I was in a quest to find out if my dad, who had passed quite a while ago, actually, might think I'm on the right path. How do I find out that I've got dad rooting for me up there and helping maneuver the stars for me in however hokey that might be? We will try everything and anything. So I had gone to a medium that said to me, I see your dad as being stoic. And my perception was lowercase stoic. I found that to be kind of insulting. And I've thought, you're way off. He was very much the life of the party, always had, and he played multiple instruments. He usually provided the music at parties and the jokes at parties. And so this was not. And I thought, wow, okay, I've clearly wasted my time and money. This person's a bit of a quack, you know. Okay. So
Yeah.
I let's let that sit and didn't think much of it. Then I got a book recommendation completely separately from this whole thing. And I should add there in there though that my dad he was an alcoholic. I had never witnessed it. But apparently he was in someone's determination. And he had a copy of the Serenity Prayer in his office, a beautiful calligraphy copy. And I have that now. So that's part of my day to day anyway. I'm looking at it all the time. Love it. It's beautiful. And it resonates, right? So then I'm going through and I get a book recommendation. And this is the book right here, The Daily Stoic, by Ryan Holiday. And um, and I thought, okay, this is 366 meditations on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. And I thought, okay, I'll try anything. Well, I open it up, and the first page of the first chapter is about control and choice. It literally recites the Serenity Prayer. And it hit me like a brick that Stoicism capitalized has nothing to do, well, I mean, to a point, but a minuscule comparison. It's really not the same. And it just all connected. And I thought, wow, my dad was definitely Stoic because he practiced Stoicism with a capital S. He was a firm believer, backed up by the Serenity Prayer, regardless of addictions or anything else, that we need to learn what we can and can't control. And then we need to control the crap out of that which we can. Take it
Yes.
by, take the bull by the horns and do it. Don't
Yeah.
just say you're going to do it. You can't just manifest it and it's more than a vision board. You have to take action,
Action.
certainly.
Yes.
But that's the whole the control and choice, and it's just that simple. I mean, you could get enough out of
Absolutely.
reading page one in this book to just take you through the whole thing.
Oh,
But I decided that
absolutely.
I could easily then figure out how it's so simple to incorporate, especially in business. That's the obvious place because that's for so much of us. We lose the sleep. Our personal lives are affected by our business lives.
Yeah.
If you have to work for a living, if you have a mortgage, if you have commitments, if you have financial burden, if you have children, whatever it is that goes with it, you have a commitment, you've got to figure it out. You don't
Absolutely,
have the choice.
absolutely. No, you don't. And it's lovely to see that you were able to flip the script on what you thought
Yeah.
was a certain version and realize what it was. And that's like the whole point of my podcast is to make people realize
Yeah.
like maybe the understanding that you had of this topic was one way, but now here's an opportunity to hear about it in another way. And this is a great way to learn about Stoicism and the fact that the ways that you can put it into your implement it into your business, it flows beautifully. And the fact that you were able to take that and allow it to be part of your character now, so that you can still represent your father in a way that gives him, you know what I mean, this joy inside it, as well as it brings you joy. And it leaves the next generation knowing that you were able to follow on your father's footsteps. And that's a beautiful thing. Oh, such a beautiful thing that I hope that
I
it
love the way
allows
that
you.
I love the way you said it because it is, we talk about all the time, what is your legacy moving forward? What impact do you have? Did your elders have on you, or will you have on your future generations, your grandkids, your whomever it is? And so, yeah, so that was a big light bulb moment in that, holy cow, I can connect these dots. It was a thanks, Dad, kind of a moment. Like I got it. The light bulb went off finally, But it just and then just daily practicing. And I'm going to be my next YouTube project will be doing and it will be geared more towards bookkeeping, but I do gear towards entrepreneurialism in general because it is a different thought process. People that aren't in it don't understand always, and it's not always natural. Sometimes we have to really learn that. So I'm going to be doing a YouTube project on how to incorporate stoicism through the quarters of our fiscal year from an accounting
Oh,
perspective.
that is beautiful.
So
Oh, that is beautiful because it truly does allow
so
people to
especially in the fourth
realize
quarter, as we enter the fourth quarter, it's getting hot in here. The clients are starting to get restless,
the
and the
pressure is
pressure is on.
real.
Oh, and then the first quarter, oh my God, now it really hits the fan because now the IRS is bark, 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 bark. So how do you control this in your daily life when you've got a mound of work in progress? You've got clients that didn't, and can you line it up better for next year? What am I doing here? What did I not get quite right? Why am I
Exactly.
getting bombarded like this? What's
Exactly.
wrong
You
with my systems? Because you have control over your
exactly.
systems. Yeah, you can't always control
Exactly.
how people respond to them, but you do have control over the systems that you use and that you create. So could you have sent out reminders sooner? Could you have automated any part of your process? How do you go in each quarter and say, okay, what can I and can't I control? How did last year go wrong? And
Exactly.
how can
Finding those
I make a
patterns.
dramatic change? Make a change
Exactly.
before the coming year. Yeah.
Exactly, because
So,
people don't realize that. They don't put those 2 to 2 together and realize, like, this is something that we have to catch the patterns, catch the routines, see where it falls, see how where it's higher, see where the positive is and the negative is. Like, you really have to do that evaluation with yourself, with your business, with any area in your life. So this is the reason why Stoicism is so great to put in any area in your life. But as long as you start just reflecting on it, then you have an opportunity to start implementing it and practicing it and just
yeah.
giving yourself the grace to know that you at least are trying. And it sucks to know that time is catching up to us because I feel like we could keep diving down this rabbit hole. But what can be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
I just think that if anyone out there in your audience is willing to acquaint themselves with the philosophy, that there's seriously not an endeavor that they're trying to attack right now in their lives that this can't be applied to. It doesn't matter if they're trying to lose weight or get healthy on some level, trying to do a new workout, trying to achieve a goal of any variety, be it a physical goal, a mental goal, a work goal,
Yeah.
trying to get over a hump of any kind. If you can take the decisions that you're making every step of that way and just compartmentalize them into a I can control this and I can't control this bucket, and move through, you will find that if you can just focus, get rid of that stuff you can't control and focus on what you can and control it to the best of your ability. Step up, control it to the best of your ability, that you will see dramatic change. Nothing happens without action, right? But if you need dramatic change, if you want dramatic change, this is just a simple mantra. It's one of the
Exactly.
easiest. And talk about evergreen. It's 2,500 years old. You don't get more evergreen than this. This will be around for millennia to come because
Yes.
it's true. Human nature is human nature. That part hasn't really changed over time. We may be smarter now about some things. We may have different mechanisms to do things, but human nature hasn't really changed. So
Yeah.
it is very fitting, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think those are valid points to truly keep us on thinking, truly reflect on how we can take action, how we can evaluate, how can we really determine how we can implement it more into our lives, how we can use it to the way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we talk to other people, giving other people the grace that we give ourselves. I mean, goodness gracious, this is really something that we can move forward with. So I thank you for this. And ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this conversation, because how could you not? Goodness gracious, how could you not enjoy this, right? Please go check out Trudy. I have her lovely photo on my website. Just click on it and it goes directly to her website. And if you're listening in audio, if you're listening on YouTube, you can find her website in the description so that you can have access to it because she has great content so that you can continue on thinking. So, isn't that the point? Just to keep on thinking? Yes, it is. Keep on thinking. So, with that being said, bye.